How you doing, y'all? Welcome to Confidence. On today's episode, we're going to be going through a bunch of different, very common limiting beliefs. I'm going to tell you my most common or most disempowering belief that I have in relationships. And then I'm going to go through a couple of the ones that the audience gave. I put out something on Instagram. I was like, yo, what are your fucking limiting beliefs around love? So I kind of categorized them into like three different categories. There's a lot of common ones, right? So I'm going to talk about the three that I found to be the most relevant. And then we're going to get into the taxi cab theory. I know a lot of people are always wondering, like, is it just when he's ready? You know what I'm saying? Because that's what the taxi cab theory is, right? It's essentially the man or a man is going to pick the girl that's in front of him at the time that he's truly ready to settle down for a relationship. So we are going to talk about that theory, my thoughts, and yeah, let's just get into it. So let's start with my most disempowering belief. I'll call them limiting beliefs, disempowering beliefs. And the reason that this is really important is because a belief is really your operating system, right? It's the way that you, and typically unconsciously or subconsciously show up to the world, right? They're the set of rules that you follow. And generally, here's the thing about beliefs is, first off, first thing I want to say is none of them are right or wrong, right? For instance, a belief about, I always like tell my coaches, they're going to love this. I always ask them the question, I'm like, do you like spinach? And they tell me either yes or no. Some people are like, I hate spinach, or like, yeah, I kind of like the taste, whatever. Is liking spinach like a good or bad thing? No, right? You either you do or you don't. It's kind of like a preference. But here's the thing, right? It all depends on what your goals are. So what I tell them is, I'm like, okay, let's say I told you you'd make $1 million if you ate 30 pounds of spinach. I'd be like, all right, what belief is more empowering towards that goal? Probably the belief that spinach is tasty or that I like it. So that's what we're trying to do, right? Is find the beliefs in your life that align with your final goal. And I'm assuming that most people listening to this and everybody that I've ever worked with, really the goal for everybody is to receive and get love, right? We want to be in a great relationship. So ultimately what we need to do is make sure that our beliefs align with that final goal. And what I find is for most people is that we have these beliefs that we have kind of accumulated over time that prevent us from getting that thing. So that's what we're going to talk about, right? What are those beliefs that are really holding you back from love? So let me go first. I wrote a bunch of disempowering beliefs down. I think this is a really great tool for you to do too. It's like, I feel like, if you're ever trying to figure out your operating system, essentially, start writing down the things that you believe in a positive context, in an empowering context, and also write them down in a disempowering context and really try to find the ones that are really holding you back. So the one for me is this, and this is a fucking big one, is I believe that always relying on myself is the answer to all my problems. I believe that relying on myself is the answer to all my problems. Now, most people might be like, whoa, well, that could be a good or bad thing, right? So here's the thing about beliefs too. It's like there's positives and negatives. Now think about that belief. I believe that always relying on myself is the answer to all my problems. Look at my life, right? What have we seen? We have seen a guy that is typically what? Single, right? Always by himself, typically. And don't get me wrong, very successful, right? I've got a lot of followers or a lot of status or a lot of money or whatever it is. I've been able to build a life for myself, again, that I've built that security for myself because, again, I'm driving home from this belief of like, whoa, I need to rely on me. I can't worry about anybody else. But where does that belief kill you? Because here's the thing about being a human being, and most people get this wrong. There is a 50% balance of independence and dependence as a human being. You need both. You cannot be one without the other. And when we're an extreme on either one, it's not healthy, right? Now, let's say we're extreme independent, which is what I'm talking about. What happens? We don't ask for help. We tend to run away from relationships. We tend to not be patient with other people. We tend to not be patient of ourselves. Right? Because if everything is always on our shoulders, how fucking stressful is life? It's stressful as fuck because everything is on you. Think about it from the context of even of a business, and you have this mentality, right? It's all on me. I got to rely on me all the time. What happens? How do you trust somebody else to do the job? How do you actually grow a massive business if you can't trust other people in their roles to do what they need to do? Because what ends up happening is you start gobbling up everything that everybody needs to do. There's no actual trust. and you don't actually grow. You don't actually get further in your life. Now, again, take it back to a dating context or a human context. Again, if I'm all independent and no dependence at all, and I don't rely on anybody else for help or for security or for support, you get burnt out. You feel lonely. You don't nurture your relationships. You take for granted a lot of people and a lot of relationships because ultimately you always feel like it comes back to you. Now, something with beliefs is you kind of have to understand where it's coming from. That helps you really put it in perspective of, A, just how you got it, and B, then how to really change it or flip it. So for me, right, we're looking at the context of my life. I always look to childhood, right? I always look to, okay, where did it start? And this is, for a lot of people I work with, this is what it is. So for me, where did I get this belief? I got this belief from my mom, point blank. What is Camille? I always call her Camille. She hates that. Camille is a wildly successful woman. She is. She was a single mother, raised me and my brother. Dude, crushing it, right? She's a partner at her firm. She makes a fuck ton of money, let's be honest. And she really does well for herself in that regard. But always growing up, that's what it was, right? It was always just, rely on you, right? Don't worry about anybody else. Always just make sure that you're working hard. Always make sure that, you don't worry about relying on somebody else for your happiness or, for your security. Here's what I'm realizing. I'm like, and not to, say this about my mom in a negative context, but I think my mom, in the way of success, she has also neglected relationships, whether it was like me and my brother or even just for herself personally. And she's still at that place today. And I'm not saying specifically with me and my brother, I'm saying just like even herself, like she's single and, she is trying to figure that part out of her life. And something that was really like, I was thinking about it deeply because I was like reading this and I was like, holy fuck, you wonder why you are the way that you are. Usually it's passed down from your parents and things like that. But what I realized is I think that there's a part of my mom, and maybe she doesn't want to admit it, and something that I've been thinking about myself is maybe that, relationship with my dad really did affect her more than she maybe wants to let on. And I think that this belief is in reaction to a lot of pain, right? A lot of pain associated with relationships, because that's what happens for a lot of people. And these are the reasons we have these beliefs, is because something traumatic happens to us, right? We take a risk in love. We're vulnerable. Like I know she loved my dad, I believe. And I don't know exactly, again, the reasoning behind the separation, but all I'm going to say is I'm sure there was a lot of part of my mom that was, grieving that situation and didn't know how to necessarily react to it. And I guess the reaction was for her was like, you know what? I can't worry about him. I got to worry about my kids and my life. And that's it. And that's what it was. And I think for a lot of single moms, they might even relate to that in some way where it's like, it's hard because they want to put themselves out there to other people. But typically if you're a single mom, right, you haven't maybe had the best results with love in your life. And what happens is you kind of get this very jaded attitude, towards love and towards relying on other people. And on top of that, you're so busy, you're taking care of kids, you're, trying to make things work in your life, but also trying to make an income. It's fucking hard. But again, it comes back to this belief of that you always have to rely just on yourself because you can't rely on anybody else. But the hard part is when you hold on to that belief, you never actually let somebody in to help you because you do fear that they are going to take advantage of that. And I see that a lot within myself, right? Again, I really do have this belief. Again, you see it, right? The success is there, right? I'm taking care of myself. I do everything for me. But when it comes to an actual relationship, I don't stick to it. I don't provide that security. I'm a runner. I'm always running away. I'm always saying, oh, you know what? You're taking up too much of my time. I got to work. I got to do shit. Where do I get that from? You know what I'm saying? And I recognize, oh shit, like I think this is a very learned behavior. And typically that's what every single belief is. It's learned from somewhere, whether it was in childhood, a previous relationship, whatever. But typically what happens is you're seeing those behaviors, worked out in front of you. You then emulate those and create those experiences in your actual life, right? Again, I'm running from all of my relationships. And then you kind of it reinforces this belief that this is true, which is, okay, I can't rely on anybody else because when I tried, it didn't really work. But what happens is if you're not actually vulnerable enough to share yourself and provide security and think somebody else can really help you and let them in, the reason that this belief is reinforced is because you're keeping everybody at a distance. And what's happening is no one trusts you in return because you're not giving trust. You're not giving vulnerability. I'm speaking to myself, right? If I can't give you my time, my energy, my vulnerability, my truth, right? Security, you're not going to stay around for that either. And then it reinforces this belief that I need to rely on myself because people are unreliable. Do you see how these beliefs can really affect, the way that your life is shaped? So for me, this is one I'm really working on, and it's really tough. Honestly, this idea of this self-reliance, because again, it is really powerful. I think that there is an aspect to it. Again, there's a lot of people where, again, I want you to look at where you're at on the scale, right? If you're looking at a scale of independence to dependence, the ideal probably is somewhere in the middle, depending on your temperament. Some people probably like to be more independent than dependent, and vice versa. Some people like to be people, right? I know people that they spend a lot of their time just with social friends, family all the time. That's what brings them joy. They don't really care about making money or having some of these things as much, right? The sacrifices that it takes to get those things. But it all depends on the things that you value. My whole point is, I think what you're really trying to do for most people is trying to center yourself more. I do find a lot of my pleasers and the people that are very dependent, we do need to start setting boundaries and taking time for ourselves. We do need to start relying on ourselves more. But for somebody like me who's more avoidant and somebody who is, really, again, operating from this belief that I can only rely on myself, I really have to look at that and question that and say, hey, is this how I'm going to get into a relationship? If I keep everybody at a distance and tell everybody that they're wasting my time because I'm working, and then I hold everybody to this ridiculous standard, which we're going to get to later in the episode. Somebody talked about their belief is they believe that their partner needs to be perfect. I also have that one. But combine that with not relying on everybody, guess what do? Everybody needs to hit a certain standard. If they're not at this standard, then I need to just fall back into me. And think about that. Is that a recipe for somebody that is going to be capable of getting into a relationship where you need to depend on each other, where you need to provide security, where there's going to be bad days and hard times and things that don't align? If somebody is so strict on only relying on them, that can't happen. So I need to look at that belief. I need to question it, right? So again, I know where it's coming from. I see why it probably does happen. How do I shift that, right? What do I need to do in order to shift this belief of relying on myself? The key for me is recognizing that I do want connection. It's costing me my relationships. It's costing me not actually growing my business. Right? Because if I can't rely on my workers to do their job and not micromanage and not try to take their, go and do the work for them, I'm never actually going to grow. I'm never actually going to develop. So I think that's the work for me, right? Is leaning more into my vulnerable side, leaning more into, okay, I'm just going to try to trust you. I do struggle to do that, but I just know I need to, right? So I need to be a little bit more giving. I need to provide more security for my future partner, point blank. I mean, that's one thing about, this situation was, if I'm running away the entire time and I'm making it hard for you to rely on me, of course you're not going to trust me. Of course, we're going to have this friction. I'm going to cause this distance. So it's just something to look at. All right, let's talk about the next one. And this one's really huge. So I saw a lot of people put in the box, right? Their limiting belief was loyalty. I feel every person has something to lie about or hide. Oof. So now imagine if you're coming to love, right? And your giant disempowering belief is, fuck, I don't trust people, right? Like, I feel like people are going to leave me. They're never going to stay. what are we going to do? Right? We talked about this. It's the self-trust. We've talked about this on a previous episode, but something for the people that struggle with this one, right? The loyalty piece, like, oh, fuck, I feel like people are going to just, leave me, or people are lying about something. The only problem with that is I find that if you are so scared to trust other people, this is what happens. You start to be controlling, you start to be punishing, and you start being very difficult to date. And the reason that is because if I don't trust you, what am I going to do? I'm just going to try to protect myself from you doing something to me. So what happens? I'm not going to be very vulnerable, right? Because I can't give vulnerability if I already don't trust you off the bat. And again, it's nothing you even probably did. It's just me having this belief that everybody's got something to hide. If I'm thinking that already, you're already starting off on the wrong foot because you're not showing up as your most vulnerable self. The other aspect is, again, what I was talking about the old podcast is trust is not about other people. Trust is about you, right? Trust is about self-trust. And we talked about the reason people struggle to trust is because they feel if somebody does some fucked up shit or some shady shit, that they won't be able to handle the emotions of that, right? We have to give people a chance to show us their true colors. That's the thing about vulnerability. And what I'm saying right now too is there is an option of you getting hurt. That is part of love. Hello. You know what I'm saying? You got to risk it for the biscuit, right? This is just anything in life. You can't win if you don't play, right? It's just what it comes down to. And that's why it's really difficult if you have these trust issues where you feel like people aren't going to be loyal because, again, you're going to close yourself up. You're going to clam up, right? So now you're not being vulnerable. Now there's already a veil of mistrust in the relationship, right? Because if you're not being vulnerable, are they going to be vulnerable to you in return? No. Now they're hiding shit. Because you're feeling like they're hiding shit, you're going to start hiding shit. And now what you're going to try to do too is try to control, right? We need this intense control over our partners because I need to know what they're doing. I need to know that you're only for me because if I find out that you are not, that's going to be painful, right? That's going to fucking hurt. Like I can't fathom going through that type of pain of finding out that you're going to fuck around. So what am I going to do? Again, my reaction is I'm not going to be truly vulnerable. And on top of that, I'm going to try to control you. Now think about that situation that you have put somebody in when you don't trust them to be loyal, right? Off the jump. And again, this isn't about them. Because typically, and I understand maybe you've had that experience in your past, but again, the reason that you could be having this experience is maybe because of the way that you're showing up. So that's one thing I want to talk to you guys about these beliefs as well too. That's really important is when you have these beliefs, you create that experience in real life. Your beliefs will manifest. Just how I was talking about only relying on myself. If my belief is I only can rely on myself, what am I going to find in the world? I'm going to find people that I feel are unreliable, or I'm going to be really like controlling, right? And again, it's going to reinforce the belief that I can only rely on me. The same thing with the loyalty piece, right? The same thing with the trust piece, which is if I'm already in that belief, it's going to manifest. Watch, it's going to reinforce, and I'll show you. Because let's say I have that belief, right? And now I meet a new person, clean slate. They've done nothing to show me that they're not trustworthy. I just believe that people are off the jump. Again, what do? Lack of vulnerability. Okay, I'm not going to show my true self to you. I'm going to keep you at a distance, right? Because I'm really fucking scared, right? Because I feel like you're going to fuck me over, and that's happened to me in my past, and I need to be fucking careful. So you're keeping them at a distance, which is already making them what? Now question you, right? They're like, "Ooh, why won't they open up to me?" Or I could feel that they're like being very distant. Like, should I trust them? You know what I'm saying? Now they're questioning you, right? Now on top of that, what happens? In order to try to prevent something from happening, right? Them hurting you or breaking your loyalty, you then try to control the situation, right? You act insecure, do you not? Right? You're wondering where they're at. You're wondering why they haven't committed yet. You're trying to speed up the boundaries, right? Tell me where you're at. Give me your location. I want to know who's that girl. You know what I'm saying? All these questions of like, oh, where you at? What's going on? You put a lot of fucking pressure on people to be a certain way. And I understand that because, again, this was me, right? That's another thing that I had. I had the worst of everything. I don't want to rely on other people. I have trust issues, severe trust issues. And again, it probably stems from me feeling like I can't rely on other people, right? I feel like everybody needs to be perfect. So again, these are all my problems. And I'm telling you, this is real, right? Because none of my relationships have worked out for a reason. And again, you try to control them. And now my lack of vulnerability, and on top of that, now my controllingness, what happens? The problem is now you're acting insecure. You're trying to control the situation, which is very off-putting, right? They could see that you feel insecure and that you're not actually expressing the things that you really want. They could see that you're trying to position the relationship into a way where you can get security without you having to give your vulnerability. That's the problem when you don't trust people, is that you want it from them without giving it yourself. And then the problem becomes that, right? Which is you're coming off passive aggressive or controlling or insecure. And what happens? Eventually, that person gets sick and tired of your insecurity. They get sick and tired of your lack of trust. They get sick and tired of your lack of vulnerability and your controllingness. And they look outside of the relationship. And they say, you know what? I don't really know about this one. You know what I'm saying? I can't get to their full side. Now, this isn't to excuse cheating, right? This isn't to excuse a lack of loyalty. That is their own baggage. For them not to be able to express themselves about your controllingness, or for them to express or not be able to express their vulnerable self to you about maybe not wanting a relationship, is not your fault. My whole point is with these beliefs is, again, I'm not saying, oh, it's all your fault because you didn't trust them off the jump. No. But what I'm saying is you're putting this relationship in a position where it can't work. You know what I'm saying? Or they might run away, or they might actually look outside of the relationship for something different because you're not showing up secure. You're not showing up as your vulnerable self. You're not giving them the space to trust them to be them, right? To have their independence, to live their life, because you're so scared that they're going to fucking hurt you. But again, that fear of them hurting you, what happens? Again, you act insecure. Eventually, what happens? They fucking hurt you because you are prying and prying and prying and prying. And again, eventually they hurt you. And then what happens? The belief reinforces that no one's ever loyal. And then the cycle continues because the last three people have cheated on me or fucked me over. It's got to be the world. It's got to be them. It's not me. It's half on you. It's half on you because you need to get your beliefs in order that, first off, number one, there are people out there that will be loyal. Aren't you loyal? I mean, maybe you're listening to this, you're like, nah, I'm not at all. But you get what I'm saying? It's like, if I'm sitting here telling you, yo, I mean, I feel like I could be loyal to the right person, and I think you could too, there has to be people in the world that are loyal. That is facts. And trust me, from me coaching, I know that there's people that I coach both men and women, and every single man and woman I've coached, almost every single one of them does not cheat. Truth. It's the truth. But the thing is, you also got to look for those values as well when you're in a relationship too, right? If you're so concerned about loyalty, honesty, I'm sure, is going to be one of your values. A very, something that you could look for early on if this is something that really, loyalty is very tough for you. Number one value for you, or the shift for you, needs to be impeccability of word, right? We need to make sure the number one value that you have, that you're looking for in relationships, is somebody that is one-to-one with their word, that does what they say and says what they do. You get what I'm saying? You need somebody that says, hey, if I'm going to be here at 7:00, they're going to be there at 7:00. And if they're not, they communicate it to you. And that's how you tell generally early on whether or not that person is trustworthy, right? We do need to see that somebody does build that trust. I agree. We can't just blindly trust. I'm not saying that. But again, you got to be careful about the controllingness. You got to be careful about showing up insecure. You got to be careful about pushing this idea that they need to show you certainty without you showing it yourself. Right? The key is that if we can be our most vulnerable self and trust that we can handle If somebody fucks us over, we're going to be okay. The reality is if you're your vulnerable self and they turn around and they fuck you over, they don't show up for you, they're just not your person. Yes, it's going to be painful, but it's going to be a huge lesson for you. Maybe there was a boundaries lesson in there. That's the other thing I find with people that struggle with, non-loyal partners. Typically, what I see is you really have poor boundaries. Truly, right? You don't know what it is that you value, and you can't walk away from a bad situation. You give way too many chances when you could tell that there's this off energy. And then again, it reinforces the belief that they're not loyal, but the reality is you're not loyal to yourself. You're not loyal to the things that you care about or the things that you know are true, which is if this person is not showing up for you, there does need to be an expression. But that's the thing is people that struggle with people or finding loyalty, I tend to find, again, have trouble expressing themselves, have trouble being vulnerable because you're afraid to speak up. You're afraid to set a boundary. Because you're scared of abandonment. Typically, again, fear of abandonment, right? If we have a fear of abandonment, what happens? Everybody fucking abandons you. Because you're so scared that they're going to leave, you don't actually express your authentic self. Do you see how this is all coming together? And this is why we got to deal with these things. It's a really big deal that you get your beliefs into alignment. And again, so let's talk about an affirmation or how do we change, the perspective on this. Actually, let's do that after we get all three of them and we'll make some affirmations for all of us. How's that? Okay. The other one is giving too much love and receiving the minimum in return. And the other one said, and this is similar, no one loves like me. So it's just this idea that I give so much in relationships and I typically don't receive that or get that in return. And here's the big one for this one. And I help people with this every fucking day. This is one of the most common limiting beliefs. This idea that, I have so much to give and nobody gives it in return. This is the mark of a people pleaser. This is the mark of somebody who feels that love, and don't get me wrong, it is about effort, right? And giving and energy. But the other problem with that is love is not also based on utility. Love is not earned. And that is the thing that you need to drill into your fucking head. Love is not actually about the amount of effort that you give somebody. Love is just given. And the example I like to give to my coochies is, let's say your grandma's on her deathbed, right? I know, very hard scene. But your grandma has no utility at that point. No offense. She can't really move. You know what I'm saying? She maybe has even nurses helping her. Does she not deserve love? You'd be like, Chris, no, of course she does. Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you about love in general. Love is not something based on your effort. It's somebody you love somebody or you don't. You give it or you don't. You know what I'm saying? It's a feeling. Don't tell me to describe love right now. I couldn't tell you what the fuck it is, to be honest. It's crazy. You know what I'm saying? It's a combo of all of these things, right? Is it not? It's the appreciation. It's the effort. It's just who they are. Now, the other way you could look at it is this way. Think about all the people that you've loved in your life, right? And especially for my pleasers or especially for the people that have gotten fucked over or feel this way specifically, right? So you give too much and you don't get it in return. Why did you love the person that you loved? Because what's funny is you loved somebody that didn't give you effort in return. So how can love be about effort? It's not. My whole point is when you're thinking about love in terms of, if I give them, they need to return. That's actually not very genuine because more than likely what you're doing is you're giving it to receive it. That's actually very selfish. And this is why people pleasing is a massive turnoff. Because when you just overgive yourself, again, for the expectation of love in return, that is conditional. You're not doing it because you're just, right? If you were just truly a loving person, wouldn't you just give to give? Wouldn't you just love to love without the expectation of something in return? Now, here's the thing. I don't want to sit up here and say that, in my opinion, just as in my study of human beings, the reality is I feel like love and relationships in a way are both half conditional and unconditional. But I think you need both. And it goes like, it's just like the independence and the dependence thing. You can't have one without the other. You know what I'm saying? Because if you have one and not the other, it doesn't really work that well. And so what I mean by that is, again, just this idea that again, if you're just giving, right, and your expectation is for them to return, it doesn't feel genuine to them. And honestly, what it is you're not actually respecting your desires. You know that you want love in return, but you're unwilling to express that. And instead of expressing it, you show up in passive aggressive ways. You just give yourself entirely to them. And again, if you're giving, right, and it's conditional, what's going to happen? You're going to feel resentment when they don't do it in return. But again, you're not loving in an unconditional way. You're loving in a conditional way. That's why there is that resentment, because they're not showing up and giving it to you in return. But I guess my whole point is with the conditional versus unconditional thing, I think relationships have both aspects, right? I think there are some conditions on a relationship, truly, right? Like, I do feel like we need to receive appreciation or something in return for our energy, or it does feel kind of empty. But at the same time, that can't be the way that we're showing up and operating either, right? You get what I'm saying? You can't give something and expect something in return. Now, if you give and you give and you give and you tend to see that there is no return, maybe what you need to do is stop, right? Maybe you need to stop that energy or stop that effort. Because again, I think that there is a little bit of condition there, right? I do believe there has to be both, right? Your intention needs to be unconditional, but the relationship itself needs to have some conditions to it for it to be functioning, honest, right? And I also see this from a way that we also fall in love, right? From this idea that I think that love is both half unego and ego, right? Because think about this. Let's be honest with ourselves. Let's be dead motherfucking honest. I think you need both. And because here's the thing. I think that we fall in love or we lust for egotistical intentions, right? Think about the things that you care about in a partner. Yes, we give a shit about honesty and communication and their character and the friendship. Those are things I think are like more unconditional, but we also care about their status. We care about the way that they look, right? We care about their job. We care about, just like their social circle, right? To me, it's about finding that balance between both, right? Because to just say that ego doesn't exist and for you to just love unconditionally, no conditions, bullshit. You're sitting here telling me you don't like them because they're fucking hot. Shut up. You know what I'm saying? Shut up. Let's be real. Let's not sit here on our high horse like, I love them for their character. Bitch, you liked him because he fucking afforded a bunch of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's be honest. Like, there's half and half. Like, he might be a good guy. That can be true. But the other side is true as well, which is he's hot and he's got some fucking money, and that matters as well. My whole point, back to the conditional, unconditional thing. I don't think that there is a love that is purely unconditional. That doesn't exist. We're strangers, right? You know what I'm saying? You have to care about yourself. And that's where it's conditional versus unconditional, because love to me compromises love of them and also love of self. And it needs to be 50-50. I love you just as much as I love myself. So that's where the unconditional and conditional comes in, right? Unconditionally, I'm giving to you because I love you, right? But on the other side, if you don't show up for me, that hurts me. And I have self-love. That's the conditional part where I'm like, I have to watch how much I give you, because if I could tell that you're unwilling to show that same good energy to me in return, that's a problem. But remember, again, you just love to love. And this is where a lot of people get it fucked up. It's like, just find somebody that loves you in return. Don't try to force somebody to love you. Don't try to earn somebody's love, right? You're not going to earn it by doing more. Somebody just loves you because of who you are, your character. Like if I asked you to describe why you loved your past partner, are you going to turn around and be like, well, they bought me this and they did a bunch of shit for me? No, you'd be like, no, I like their laugh, or I like their smile, or like I just love the time that we spent together, like our conversations. That to me is not something you can give, or I'm sorry, force somebody to give you. They either see that within you or they don't. But that's where that self-trust piece also comes in too, because when you're trying to earn somebody's love, it's off-putting. It's trying to control. And it goes back to the whole thing of like, it reinforces why no one shows up for you, because there's this woe is me attitude about showing up in love and I'm trying. Nobody wants that. That's not authentic. You're not being real. Authenticity means you have an even amount of love for yourself and for me. That means that you give, but you don't give too fucking much because you also care about yourself. That's authentic. That's real. But when you give unlimitedly, right? And you expect this love in return from me, and you don't tell me that, and you just give the fuck out of me, you give me. I'm like, whoa, this is a little too much. Very off-putting. I'm not going to give this person that much effort because this is kind of strange. You know what I'm saying? This is a little too much. Like you're being a pleaser. That's a turnoff. And then you wonder why, but they don't give me anything in return. Well, it's because you're not sticking up for yourself, or you feel that by giving more, they're going to give you more in return. That's not how it works. Actually, when you give less, they give you more. It sounds weird, but it's just true. But that's why we got to find that balance in between. Remember, conditional versus unconditional, ego versus non-ego, independence versus dependence. Do you see the balance and the duality of everything in life? Find that middle ground. So again, and also just really get rid of the idea that love is earned. Love is given. You know what I'm saying? It's the idea of like, you don't try to turn somebody into a nice person. Right. Oh, there's this like little thing I read about like this hospital. Right. And they talk about there's like a sign on the wall of the hospital and it says, we don't train nice people. We hire nice people. Does that make sense? Same thing. Now in love, let's do it the same way. Right. So if I'm looking at your love wall inside your fucking vagina, you know what I'm saying? Let's put a sign up that says, I don't force people to love me. I find people that love me. New mantra. I don't force people to love me. I find people that love me. Big difference, right? I just, whether you're either showing up and you're doing it or you're not. It's not about me and how much I have to give. All right. Next one. And this one is, again, it's big on me. And I think this is more for the men, but definitely some women too. They said that love or the person that they date has to be perfect. It has to be perfect. AKA it's the search for the one. We need the one, right? They need to have all of my values. And I really struggle with this one, right? I really struggle with this because I'm a perfectionist myself, right? And because that's what usually happens. People that have this one about the person needing to be perfect, what I find is usually you expect that out of yourself. And what I really find, and this is something that I am really working on, one of the biggest transformations I feel like I'm making right now in my life is self-acceptance and not being so harsh and so critical of yourself. Because what happens is if you're critical of yourself and you have these high standards for yourself, what do you think you're going to do to your partners? Criticize them? Tell them that they're not good enough. No one's ever going to be good enough. But the truth is you're not good enough for yourself. That's the truth. That's the truth. And I'm looking at myself in the mirror right now because this is fucking me to a T. And this is, again, a massive breakthrough that I feel like I've made recently about this idea of perfection. Because again, that's me, right? Is it not? Oh, I got to have my body on point. I got to have my success on point. I got to go to the gym. I got to fucking do this. I got to have friends. I got to have a great this, everything great. That's exhausting. You know what I'm saying? At some point, you recognize that you are human. But again, when we have this idea, this belief that it has to be perfect, that's what happens. Because here's the thing. And this goes back to the self-reliance piece too, which is, if it has to be perfect, what happens when you run into conflict? What happens when it's not perfect? And let me ask you, can it ever be perfect? No. So this is what happens, right? Is you have this expectation of perfection. You hold them to that standard. I'm sure you're going to be critical and criticizing. That's me to a T. And what happens? You know what I'm saying? You criticize them. They don't feel even available to even be vulnerably themselves anymore, right? Because that's what's crazy too. When you expect your partner to be perfect and you start criticizing them, you start putting them down, they can't show up. They can't be that vibrant, great person because they feel like they need to be perfect in return. And that's why those people sometimes don't even show up correct and they show up inauthentic, is because they're scared. They're scared of your judgment. And that's why this belief really crushes you. And again, for me specifically, because I'm a perfectionist in every sense of the word, and it crushes me in so many different ways, but relationships specifically. Because the problem is you can't even take a look in the mirror and recognize that you yourself are not perfect. That's the funniest thing about people that expect perfection from their partners, is you don't even recognize for you that you got flaws, you got problems. They're dating you through your bullshit. And why can't you accept them through theirs? But that's the key for this one, right? It's like, it's all about acceptance. It's all about acceptance of self. Like, first, I think it starts with accepting yourself first. If you can't accept yourself first, you cannot accept another partner. Because that critical, harsh judge that you have about yourself, I'm just going to be honest, like, again, nothing's ever going to be good enough for you. You're going to judge yourself. You're going to feel like crap. And then you're going to make your partner feel like shit because you're just going to be critical of them and judge them. And again, they're going to clam up. And then what happens is they clam up and then they're not perfect even more. Now they're not being vulnerable. Now they're not showing up in the ways that you want. Now you're being even more critical because they're fucking up even more. And eventually you ruin every single relationship. Quasi Chris Nappy. Quasi me. Which is hold everybody to this ridiculous standard, push them to the fucking edge, run away because I could only deal with myself, even though I don't even accept myself, and then sit there and feel like shit because I've lost another great person. That's just the truth. And that's why the search for the one, you're not going to find the one, you know, don't get me wrong. And I think this is where it really becomes fundamentally difficult, is that I do feel like a great person. You know what I'm saying? I do feel like an amazing individual. I'm like, I have so much light. I've got so much love that I want to give. You know what I'm saying? I've got so much good energy and vibrations and great qualities. And I want somebody that's going to match that. Of course. But we don't allow somebody else to match that or to show up and be that self if we are already expecting them to be 100 out of 100. That's impossible. And it's impossible for yourself too, because that's the thing is like, again, I have so much light, but it comes with extreme dark, does it not? Right? So if I'm this very vibrant, light person, perfectionist, all the shit, again, what do I do in my relationships? I control to that degree. I have expectations to that degree. How hard is it to date somebody like that has all of these expectations for you, that doesn't allow you to be human? And again, my whole point is that you don't even recognize that within yourself, that you are not perfect yourself, even though you might be great. And I'm speaking to myself and I'm speaking to you, and I hope that's getting through to you and how important it is to, you know, again, if you're somebody that has that belief, to really look at that and say, gosh, how many people have I passed up on, or relationships I've passed up on because I felt that they weren't aligned or that it wasn't perfect. And you know, by golly, like for me, like I'm gonna be honest with y'all, like I feel like through all the work that I've been doing recently to like discover all this, it does make me look back at my relationships and be like, damn, like I could have given that a better chance. I could have given more security. I could have been way less critical. I could have been way less controlling. I could have ran way less. Like, as much as we want to blame the other person, as soon as you start blaming the other person, you're done. You're done. My relationship success or not success was never about them. It's always been about me. It's always been about me. And it's always been about you. It's not about, and this is what I teach people, my coaching, it really is about. People think relationships are like, oh, I just got to attract the right one. No, motherfucker, you got to fix your shit. You know what I'm saying? You got to fix your motherfucking patterns. That's what you need to do. And you really got to get your beliefs in alignment. So, I would say really quickly, let's make some affirmations for all of our beliefs. This is what I do with my coochies. So let's do the first one. The first one was, I believe that always relying on myself is the answer to all my problems. So what's a better belief that I can take? Let's make one up. I don't know. Relying on myself is important, but depending on others is also equally as important. I should not feel ashamed for relying on somebody else for happiness. I need support. I welcome support. Those are affirmations that Chris should start taking and saying, whoa, okay, that's more breathable. That makes more sense. That gives me more balance. Let's take the next one, the loyalty. The right person will show up and be loyal, point blank, right? People might have things to hide, but so do I. When I'm vulnerable, other people will show up vulnerably in return, right? If I can trust myself that I can handle negative emotions, I can trust other people. Boundaries. If I see somebody, or I trust my boundaries, I don't know what the fuck this affirmation is, but it's some sort of belief about trusting that if I see dishonesty, I will address it on the spot. I will express myself. These are beliefs or even boundaries that we need to take to be successful. Let's talk about giving too much love and receiving the minimum. Love is not earned. Let's start there. Love is not earned. I can't win somebody's love. The affirmation here is the right person will love me in return without extra effort. Without extra effort. I am worthy of love. I am enough. My love is not based on my effort. Their love towards me is not based on my effort. Last one. It has to be perfect. Point blank. It will never be perfect. Love is not perfect. Humans are not perfect. You are not perfect. I am not perfect. Relinquish that immediately. I will allow people to be human. I will be cautious of criticizing others when I know myself am flawed. I will be more compassionate towards other people's insecurities and flaws. If you could follow all those rules, if you can follow every single one of those motherfucking beliefs, that's how you become successful in relationships. I hope you know that. All right, let's do the last one, taxi cab theory, real quick. Let's knock it out. So what's my opinion on the taxi cab theory? Will a man just settle down when he is ready? Here's the thing about the taxi cab theory. I think that there is some truth to the taxi cab theory, but I don't think it's when the man just determines that he's ready. I do believe that there needs to be a mental switch for a guy, that he needs to be open to commitment and he needs to be ready for a commitment. But there's a lot of men, and as we just talked about with the beliefs, that they think that they're ready for commitments, but they are not capable of commitments. A man can be ready for commitments, but not capable of commitments. A lot of people are like this. A lot of people think that they are ready for a relationship, but really that they're baggage and they're bullshit. They are not. They are not. And you will find out real quick, because what they'll do is they'll tell you that they're ready for something real, and then traumatic things will happen or bullshit happens and they run away, or they're anxious or they're avoidant or whatever it is. I don't really believe in like the idea of again, if it's just like a guy signals that he's on and he's ready to go. Now, I will say this though, I'll be honest, right? For me in my life, I feel like as a guy, I did need to be at a place where I did feel a lot more secure within myself for that to even be possible. You get what I'm saying? If I'm not where I want to be, which any guy, I'll tell you right now, is not where they fucking want to be. Have you met a guy that's ever been where they wanted to be? Because I haven't. You know what I'm saying? None of these motherfuckers are anywhere near where they want to be, ever. But my whole point is they need to be at least a place where they feel like self-secure. You know what I'm saying? And they need to feel like financially secure and emotionally secure. And I think it does take a little bit of time for a man to get there. So I do believe that there's a lot of men that truly are not ready. Like when a guy tells you that he is not ready, he is not ready. He's not. That is true. Taxi cab theory is right. The light is off. You know what I'm saying? Do not enter in the taxi. If you get in the taxi when he tells you he's not ready to take you somewhere, you're signing yourself up to go fucking nowhere and pay a bunch of money to end up in a place where you don't want to be, in the hood. You know what I'm saying? You're going to get out of that taxi and you're going to get your ass kicked. You might as well wait for a taxi that does have the light on, aka you should wait for a man that is at least expressing to you and showing to you in some capacity that they are emotionally available. If they are telling you that they are not, or that they're not in a position of their life where we're ready to date, no offense, it's your fault for getting in the cab when the light's not on. It's not their fault. They're telling you the truth. They're going to take you for a quick ride. That's all it's going to be. So I do believe that a man does need to be ready in order to be in a relationship. But I truly believe that for women too. What are you, a fucking taxi too? Come on. Now, I do believe that women, you know, for the most part, are more secure or are constantly looking for companionship pretty much throughout their life. And I just think you start earlier, right? Because like, you guys mature a little bit faster. You want those things a little bit quicker than a man does, right? So when you're in your 20s, typically like a girl's ready to go. You know what I'm saying? Like you romanticize the idea of love. It's your final destiny. It's your goal. And I think it is for a man too. But I think for a man, you know, there's a large part of our life that the relationship isn't the goal at the moment. It's not. So I guess that's where the difference is like for a lot of men, it's like sometimes like just success and having fun and just kind of bullshitting is the goal. And it really is not being in something committed. So yes, it does. The light does need to be on. But I think even when the light is on, even when a guy tells you he's ready for a relationship, it doesn't actually mean he's truly ready, because that doesn't take into consideration his capability of commitment. And his capability of commitment to me is reliant on the amount of work that he has done on himself and just a self-reflection and the lessons that he's learned from his previous relationships. And there's no way to really measure that as a woman, right? Some guy putting the light on and saying, hey, I'm available for a relationship. It's still, at least, yes. Is there one check mark checked? Yeah, yes, it is. But that doesn't mean you're going to get to your destination. What you need to do is you need to get in that car and you need to see that the wheels work. You need to see that his GPS is on. You need to see that the timer's on the taxi, like he's actually charging you, you know, the right amount of money. You need to see that he's consistent with his word. You need to see that he's providing emotional safety. And that to me is just time. You're not going to really know that until you're going further along. And also, I do want to say this, ladies, too. Look at yourself a little bit. Look at yourself a little bit. I'm sitting here and I'm telling you about how men are not capable of commitment. I'm going to be honest with y'all. A lot of y'all women are so scared of love. You're so scared of getting hurt. You're so jaded. Half of y'all do not open up vulnerably. You do not express yourselves vulnerably. You're not honest about what you want. You go for the ride because you're hoping that something happens, but you're not being real. You have terrible boundaries. You don't stick up for yourself. Your self-worth is shit. It's everybody. It's not a man problem. It's not a woman problem. It's an everybody problem, right? It's an everybody challenge. Love is hard. A great relationship is difficult if you do not work at it. So I just want to keep that in mind, right? It's not about just the guy. I understand that you're ready for commitment, but it doesn't. The thing is, the ways that women sabotage relationships is not by not giving security. It's by not giving vulnerability. because y'all have a tendency to want men to act in a certain way for you, and you don't express what that is. And then shit starts getting fucked up, but then you blame them for running away or leaving, but you're not also giving the man what he needs. He needs honesty. He needs trust. He needs admiration. And a lot of the times, y'all don't do that. And again, you blame the man and say, well, he left me, he cheated. What was your part in it? It's not just him. And I hope that this whole podcast in general, just a little wake-up call, right? To the idea that your beliefs and the ways that you're showing up are the most important. You want a great relationship? It's on you to fix your shit. It's not on the world. It's not because of the dating apps. It's the dating apps. You know what I'm saying? It's this modern dating culture that everybody's just fucking everybody. Not true. Your self-worth is shit. You know what I'm saying? Your self-respect is shit. Your beliefs are shit. You're shit. Fucking shit. Nah, I'm just kidding. You're not shit. You're a nice piece of shit. All right. You haven't even realized you're shit yet. That's the problem. Scoop yourself off the ground, throw yourself in a recycle bin, and hopefully you come out as a beautiful flower. That's what needs to happen. You need to take your shit, put it into the ground, put some soil, put some fucking nutrients, books, therapist, coach, water, sunshine, beautiful flower. Hopefully other flowers come around. Hopefully there's a bee nearby that pollinates you. You get to fuck. You get my drift. You get what I'm fucking saying here. You can do it. You can do it. Because I know I can do it. If I can get through trust me, I've got so much garbage. You know, I just told you all my fucking baggage. I got a fuck ton of baggage. I'm working on it. I could be critical. I could be controlling. I could be a jerk. I could be mean. But if I'm going to be in a relationship, I got to be more compassionate. I got to have empathy. I got to stop controlling my partners. I got to let things build naturally. I got to accept myself. I got to love Chris, because when I love Chris, I can love freely without condition. I'm going to get there, folks. Y'all know it. Y'all know I'm going to be in the fucking best relationship. I'm going to be a fucking awesome dad. Fuck these hoes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm on that shit. All right. I love you all. Kisses, blessings. If you ever want to work with me, you know where to find me, confidencechris.com. The new website is out. Woo! Go ahead and apply. I do a free consultation. You know, I know some people look at the price and they're like, I don't know. Honestly, if you want the best of the best, you got to fucking invest. Hey, fucking trademark that, bitch. That's all I'm saying. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I fucking care about you. That's what you need to know. I will take care of you like you were my fucking child. You were my fucking baby boy. You were my baby girl. I will cradle you and I will kiss you on the forehead and tell you everything's going to be okay, but I'm going to tell you, yo, guess what? Fix your fucking shit, though. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to kiss you on the forehead and I'm going to say, you know what? Get your ass up and let's go, because you're being a bitch right now. You know what I'm saying? All right. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.